One of the best moves on the board. A pawn occupies the center, and two pieces are freed for action. 150 years ago the great Philidor said, "The game cannot better be opened than by advancing the e-pawn 2 squares." This advice is still good today. Only one other white first move, 1, d4, releases two pieces at the same time. Probably the best reply, says Capablanca. Black equalizes the pressure in the center and frees his queen and a bishop. This is superior to such developing moves as 2, knight c3, or 2, bishop c4, which are less energetic. The g1, knight comes into play with attack, which cuts down the choice of reply. Black must defend his pawn with 2, knight c6, or 2, d6, or he may decide to counterattack by 2, knight f6. Whatever his answer, he cannot dawdle. He must do something to meet white's threat. Undoubtedly the logical move. The pawn is protected without loss of time and the b8, knight, is developed to its best post in the opening in one move. Excellent, since the bishop seizes an important diagonal. The bishop strikes at f7, black's weakest point. A bishop is utilized to greatest effect either in controlling an important diagonal or in pinning, and rendering useless, an enemy piece. 3. Knight f6, is a good alternative. Either move is in accord with the maxims of the masters, which they advocate and put to use. Get your pieces out fast. Move each piece only once in the opening. Develop with a view to control of the center. Move only those pawns that facilitate the development of pieces. Move pieces, not pawns. White's intentions are clear, he wants to support a pawn advance in the center. His next move, 5, d4, will attack pawn and bishop. To save his e-pawn, black will be forced to play 5, e takes d4. The recapture by 6, c takes d4, will give white a strong formation of pawns in the center. White's idea has some point if it can be enforced. If the plan fails, his pawn standing at c3 deprives the b1 knight of its most useful square. Chess is not a game to be played mechanically. Usually, moving a piece twice in the opening is a waste of time, but threats must be parried before continuing development. The bishop retreats in order to preempt white's contemplated 5, d4, which attacks pawn and bishop. Hoping to induce black to exchange pawns. Note that black's e-pawn is attacked, but not his bishop. Instead of exchanging pawns, as he would have been compelled to do if his bishop were also under attack, black defends his e-pawn while bringing another piece into play. His queen has advanced only one square, but even so the move is laudable, the act of leaving the back rank constitutes a developing move. In addition to developing a piece and defending a pawn, black's last move threatens to continue 6, e takes d4, 7, c takes d4, queen takes e4 check, winning a pawn. Besides the usual benefits derived from castling, safeguarding the king and mobilizing the rook, white's move indirectly protects his e-pawn. If black tries 6, e takes d4, 7, c takes d4, queen takes e4, then 8, rook e1, pins and wins the queen. The knight develops with a threat, attack on the e4 pawn. Tempting, as it will dislodge the c6 knight from its strong post. The move is natural, but to be censured on several counts. 1. The d-pawn blocks the path of white's own c4 bishop, greatly limiting its action. 2. The range of black's b6 bishop has been increased, now its attack leads straight to white's king. 3. White has moved a pawn while his queenside pieces are crying to be released. In the opening, move only those pawns that help develop the pieces. Retreat is safer than moving the knight to the side of the board. After 7, knight a5, white's response is 8, bishop d3, after which he threatens to win the awkwardly placed knight by 9, b4. Defends the e-pawn, but the development of another piece is more consistent with opening strategy. Either 8, knight bd2, or 8, queen e2, protects the pawn while bringing one more piece into play. Do not move the same piece twice in the opening. It is interesting to see how black punishes these infractions of principle. On the chessboard, if nowhere else, justice does triumph. No exception can be taken to this pawn move. It strengthens the center, opens a path for the c8 bishop and relieves the queen of the burden of watching over the e-pawn. To prevent black from pinning his knight by 9, bishop g4, but as Publius Cyrus observed some considerable time ago, there are some remedies worse than the disease. In disturbing the position of the pawns shielding his king, white weakens organically the structure of the kingside castle position and sets up the unfortunate h-pawn itself as a convenient target for direct attack. All chess theorists affirm the validity of the concept of leaving the kingside pawns unmoved, from Staunton, who said more than 140 years ago, it is seldom prudent in an inexperienced player to advance the pawns on the side on which his king has castled, to Reuben Fine, who said a century later, the most essential consideration is that the king must not be subject to attack. He is safest when the 3 pawns are on their original squares. How does black take advantage of white's last move? What is the best way to expose its imperfections? By playing a move similar to the one I have severely censured. What is the justification for black's advance of the h-pawn? Black has not weakened his defensive position, since his king is not castled on the kingside. His advance of the h-pawn is a gesture of attack, not a timid attempt to ward off a pin. The h-pawn will constitute a base for the g-pawn, which will march up to g5, and then g4. From there it will strike in 2 directions, at white's knight and his h3 pawn. White will be compelled either to capture this pawn or let it capture his own h3 pawn. No matter which exchange occurs, it results in an opening up of the g-file, along which black can align his pieces for an attack on the king. A developing move, but it may be too late. A bayonet thrust. The next step is to g4, where the pawn will break up white's position. To prevent the intended advance. If the pawn moves on, it will be attacked 3 times and defended only twice. Has black's plan miscarried? Not at all. If necessary, black will sacrifice a pawn for the sake of ripping away the defensive screen around white's king. Practically forced, as black was threatening 12, g takes h3, as well as 12, g3. White has managed to close the file, for the time being. Now it is black who attacks the g-pawn 3 times, while only 2 pieces defend it. Obviously, white may not give his pawn more support by 13, f3, as it's against the law. It exposes his king to check. Desperately snatching at a loose pawn. In view of his retarded development and the plight of his king, such a capture is risky policy. If any hope remains, it lies in some such move as 13, bishop e3. Not only does this bring another piece into play, but also in opposing one force with another of equal strength, it neutralizes the pressure of black's bishop. The text move disregards the admonition. Do not grab pawns at the expense of development or position. Gaining time by threatening the bishop, among other things. Can white save the game? If he tries 14, knight takes g4, black forces the win by 14, bishop takes g4, attacking the queen, 15, queen c2, bishop f3, threatening 16, rook takes g2 check, 17, king, h1, queen h4 checkmate, 16, g3, queen h4. And mate will come at h1. In this line of play, black skillfully exploits the helplessness of white's pinned pawns. The bishop flees and attempts to repel one of the assailants. This capture greatly limits white's choice of reply. The knight has taken a piece and now threatens the rook. On the alternative 15, bishop takes b6, black wins by 15, they takes b6, 16, king takes h2, queen h4 check, 17, king g1, rook takes g2 check. The fastest, 18, king takes g2, bishop h3 check. And white must either walk into mate by 19, king g1, queen g5 check, 20, king h2, queen g2 checkmate, or into a discovered check by 19, king h2, bishop takes f1 check, 20, king g1, bishop takes e2, when the loss of material is ruinous. Black has two major pieces operating with full force on the two open files near the enemy king. The attack plays itself. White's only move. Threatening mate on the move. There is no defense that will postpone the mate for long. If 17, g3, then black continues 17, rook h8, 18, f3, bishop takes e3 check, 19, queen takes e3, or 19, rook f2, queen h1 checkmate, 19, queen takes g3 checkmate. Or if 17, f3, guarding the g-pawn with his queen, then 17, bishop takes e3 check, 18, rook f2, queen takes g2 checkmate, is mate. Strange that white, who feared the pin so much, should perish by the pin.